Hello everyone, welcome to the live success stories session on EduTap. And today I feel immense pleasure to announce that with me I'm having Miss Rashi Khandelwal, who has been recently selected as the RBI Grade B officer. So ma'am, first of all, heartiest congratulations to you on becoming the RBI Grade B officer and welcome to the platform on EduTap. And today, guys, really, ma'am is having a lot of things to tell you about her journey for the preparation and for becoming the RBI Grade B officer. So, ma'am, let's just begin with a small introduction from your end.
Thank you very much for having me here. A brief introduction about me. So, I did my law from National Law University, Raipur, in the year 2017. Thereafter, I worked for a law firm in Mumbai for a few months, basically. And then I started preparing for civil services. I gave my first attempt in 2018, and then I continued it till like 2020. Post 2020, I decided not to appear for the civils anymore. um, I've been appearing for RBI since 2019, so this was technically my third attempt and the only prelims that I cleared. This year, I also appeared for SEBI legal stream, and I happened to get to the interview stage. I think this tells a brief
Okay, ma'am.
background about myself.
Yeah. So as you mentioned that you did law and then you started preparing for after working for a few months, you started preparing for UPSC. So how did RBI happen in between?
So I did not clear 2019 prelims of civil services. And I think it was expected that RBI, I just somehow got to know about it. I truly do not remember where I heard it from. But I got to know that RBI does conduct an examination. I did my own research, read quite a lot about it. And I think that was the time when I decided that I do want to appear for this examination seriously. And so in 2019, I appeared for the exam. So it happened primarily because I did not clear the civil prelims that year. But post that, I've been appearing for RBI in the last two attempts also.
But all the students here and all the EduTap team, we are really happy that now you have become the RBI Grade B officer, achieving your dream job. So, ma'am,
Thank you very much.
as mentioned by you, so it's been a long journey as you have also prepared for the UPSC, and after that you have given 3 attempts of the RBI. So in this tough journey of yours, there must be some hardships that you must have faced. So can you tell our experience about those hardships, as well as how did you maintain your motivation levels during those tough times?
So I think I wouldn't use the term hardships per se in my case because, as I understand, I come from a background where my family was truly very supportive towards whatever I was doing. And I think that made things particularly very, very easy for me. I also had friends who kept on telling me that,
Hmm.
this shall pass. And eventually it did. So hardships, basically none. Uh, but I did have to make sure that I am following a disciplined routine. And I would say that is a difficult thing to do because when you decide to do something, you have to take certain calls which probably you wouldn't want to, like missing probably your best friend's wedding. And I think it does take a toll at some point, but eventually, if you have your support system in place, which I truly did in my case, it sails you through. So, yes, I think more or less it was because I did not believe it is coming as a hardship, but it was particularly something I was doing for myself. So,
So these were your supporting pillars during those journey. Really glad to know that.
absolutely.
Yeah. So, ma'am, a very basic question that always a student has in their mind, because most of the students who are preparing for the RBI Grade B, they are not from the finance background, and you are also not from the finance background. So you must be very apt to answer that question. That is it really possible for as you are not from the finance background to clear this RBI Grade B exam?
I think it is possible because I'm sitting right in front of you.
Definitely.
So I do not think it is a matter of possibility. It is all about how much efforts you are willing to put in. So when I started my civils preparation also, there were certain subjects I did not know. I started from scratch. So it is all about the fact how much willing you are to start from the scratch. And also with finance, I think the pattern has changed quite a lot in the RBI exam also. As in previously, there were numericals that were being asked. But as far as I remember, in the last 1 or 2 years, we haven't seen any numericals coming. So that automatically makes it a theoretical paper. So if you are well versed with the concepts, it definitely helps you. So it's definitely possible. It's just about how much effort you're willing to put in. For someone, management is going to be easy. For others, economy might be easy. But then everyone comes at the same platform, right? So
Definitely, and everybody is required to make the enough efforts in order to clear the exam, and you have done it very well.
exactly.
So, ma'am, moving towards the different phases of the whole recruitment cycle of RBI Grade B exam. So, please tell our aspirants about the phase one. Let's start with the phase one. That what exactly was your most important and scoring section in the phase one, and how did you prepare for that for the quant, reasoning, current affairs, English part?
So just putting it on record, this year I did not particularly get time to prepare for phase one of the examination because I had my SEBI interview 4 days
Mhm.
before it. I was traveling. In fact, I wasn't even sure that I'm going to appear for the exam. It so happened that my father and my best friend just convinced me to write the exam, and so it happened. So I particularly had like 3 odd days. But I also want to mention that I have been in the examination cycle for a very long time. So I have been doing my homework pretty well. I've been reading newspapers since past 4.5, 5 years continuously. So I do get an edge there. So in those 3 days, what I did was I picked up the marathon videos, the GA sessions basically,
Mhm.
and I went through the notes basically. I did not have time to go through the videos. So I referred to EduTap and Anujindal marathon notes, and they were pretty 1,000 questions. I think I do not know, but somewhere around this numerical. I think that helped because one, there were some state questions like 7 or 8 out of them. So one that helped. Second, I developed my elimination skills through the UPSC preparation. So there were certain options that I would outrightly maybe say that this wouldn't be the answer. And thirdly, since I was reading newspaper, I had a vague idea about everything. So this year, in the second set, we had a question related to Sexual Harassment Act. Now, if someone has been reading the newspaper, it automatically becomes easy for them to, answer that particular
Yes,
question.
as you're habitual to reading such kind of things.
Absolutely. So you know that, this is a possibility and this is just not possible. So I think that definitely helped me. For quant, so I have missed the sectional cutoff of both quant and legal reasoning at some point in the RBI process in the past two cycles.
Mhm.
So I knew these are my weak points, but I did not have time. So I ended up watching few videos of particular topics. For instance, in quant, we always see questions related to percentages or boat and stream questions. So I went to, I just watched those videos, picked up certain numericals, and then just solved them. So I think before 2 days before the exam, I knew how certain set of questions are supposed to be solved. And in the examination, I actually looked for those questions instead of wasting my time over other questions because I knew these probably are the questions I would be more comfortable doing.
Very important point, that
Uh,
is going by your strength is a very important thing when you are appearing in the exam.
Absolutely. Adding on to what you said right now, I think in the past two attempts, I realized that my weakness in logical reasoning is puzzles. So I would always end up trying to solve puzzle in the beginning, and then I wouldn't have time to solve the other questions. So this year, when I started solving the puzzle in the beginning, I told myself how I am not supposed to do
Mhm.
that. So I probably wasted like 1 or 2 minutes over there, but then I switched to other questions. So I think that definitely was important in my case because I'm sure if I had ended up solving puzzles, I still wouldn't be sitting here because I wouldn't have been able to clear phase one. So it's truly important that you do not repeat the mistakes that you do because it really goes a long way. So this is how I prepared for English. I did not do anything because I think I'm comfortable with that section. So
Very important thing, that learning from your mistakes from the past experiences, and apart from that, always know that what your strengths are and picking up those questions, because in the exam we are not required to just attempt all the questions. Instead, we have to pick the questions in which we are strong, and we can basically fetch more and more marks in the limited
absolutely.
amount of time. That is a very good point from your. So guys, kindly note down this point, a very a $1 billion point which has been mentioned by here, ma'am. So apart from that, can you also tell us our experience about, see, in the current affairs part? the very important thing is retaining the facts and figures, because they are really full of heavy facts and figures in the current affairs. So how did you manage to retain those particular things?
I think in order to retain anything, revision is the most important thing. There is no shortcut to it. So, in the 2019 attempt, I really prepared for the GA section really well, and I ended up scoring around 65 plus marks. So, coming from there, I think it's always important that you end up making, your own notes in terms of when it comes at least to values and figures. For instance, ADB, World Bank end up giving a lot of loans. RBI tends to ask questions from those sections. So might as well make a table, right, which state the World Bank has been given loans to and what amount. So, you have a table, there is no scope of you getting confused. Similarly, you can do certain exercise for like ADB or AIIB. Similar exercises can be done with respect to MOUs because several IITs end up signing MOUs with different ministries. So maybe, take up IIT and make notes about it. So I think this makes revision far more easier and also helps in retention. So these are like, it is a one-time effort, definitely, but then worth it if you end up solving the questions.
So making your own notes also helps you in retaining the those facts and figures which are really important to be remembered from the exam point of view. Very important thing. So, ma'am, apart from that, can you tell our experience about the mock tests if you have appeared for the RB Grade B exam phase 1 mock tests?
This year, I attempted only one freely available mock
Yes.
because due to time constraints. But in the past, I attempted both practice mock as well as EduTap mocks for phase one. And I feel that it is really, really helpful because one, you understand how negative marking operates, which several of us forget in the examination, your good attempts, what is your accuracy level. And if you know something of this sort, you always have a upper edge. Second thing is that with mocks, you also get to know what kind of questions are being asked. So my English preparation happened only through mocks because I just wanted to know the type of questions that RBI ends up asking. And if you have practiced that well, your comprehension skills automatically increase. So I think mocks are very crucial.
So basically mocks are also very important. They play their part as well to know and that how the negative marking operates. Apart from that, it also helps you in acclimatizing to the exam pattern and sitting for those 2 hours to solve that particular exam and analyze where you are
Absolutely.
lacking. Very good point, ma'am. So what was your favorite section out of the 4 sections of the RBI Grade B phase 1 exam?
English.
So
I think
yours
that
was
was one section where I knew that I'd end up scoring like 20 to 23 marks. So at least
okay.
one section where I knew that ठीक है हो
Yes.
जाएगा सब.
हो जाएगा and हो गया absolutely.
True that.
So that was all about the phase 1. Now let's move towards the phase 2 of the RB Grade B exam. So ma'am, very first important thing that for the phase 2, we all know the duration of the exam is 5.5 hours. So how can one get acclimatized to sitting for those long hours in order to attempt that particular exam?
So I do not know, but I think in my case it happened very naturally because I was used to sitting for long hours when I was studying. So when you have a habit of studying for so long, you automatically, get that idea also. It really doesn't bother you if you're supposed to sit for that long in the examination also. So maybe, of course, I understand we can't sit for like 5.5 hours together, but then you have a break in RBA exam also after the third paper, the finance management paper. So I think my take would be maybe make schedule like you are probably sitting for 2 hours and then taking a break of 15-20 minutes. So I think that is one thing that can be done. Other than that, I think solving mocks also helps here because you are again sitting for like 1.5, 2 hours. So you automatically know that you cannot get up. So if people have, I'm sure certain people do have that tendency of not being able to sit at one place because I too had that issue. But eventually, if you put on the timer and do not get up, at some point you will realize that it's okay, it's doable.
Yes. So, ma'am, we all know that the pattern of the RBI Grade B exam has been changed. The rules are changed. So now the descriptive writing is basically introduced in the phase 2 exam of finance management as well as economics and social issues. So what do you think that how a student can prepare for the descriptive writing? Apart from that, what you think that are the good elements of a good descriptive answer?
Uh, so I think preparation for the descriptive part comes when you are actually reading. Because when you're solving MCQs, you probably will look at very uh, values and quantities and those sort of stuff. But when you are reading for descriptive, you basically are trying to know the concept in a whole. So if I am to go about it, I would say one should prepare for descriptive and then jump on to objective. Because if you are conceptually clear, you will be able to solve certain set of questions. I'm not talking about economic questions here because they are solely current based. But at least talking about finance management, that is my take. Uh, Secondly, how an answer should be. I think intro, body, conclusion is something that works in almost all set of questions because this is the most simplest format one. Second, you end up covering most of the things that you're supposed to write. Second thing is I wrote all my answers in point form. I did not prefer paragraphs because it particularly becomes easier for examiner to see what all you have written if you have mentioned the points and how many points you have written. Thirdly, specifically in management, I wrote examples for every point that I wrote. And I think that worked in my favor because I ended up scoring decent marks in FM descriptive. So I feel, if you can maybe frame your own examples. So for my preparation, I refer to EduTap, mind maps, and the model answers that were given with the course. But I couldn't recall the examples there because I had particularly maybe revised them once. So I knew the points, but I couldn't recall the examples. But because of my understanding, I could write examples on my own. And I think that definitely would have helped me. And quoting examples also helps the examiner to know that, you probably haven't just learned things, but you have also understood them. So I think that definitely gives one edge. Other than that, now this is, I really found it important because in my ESI paper, my keyboard had stopped working. So I had to get it changed and then get another keyboard, which was also not functioning well. So all my answers were short of word limit. Whereas in FM paper, except one question, all my answers were well within the word limit or maybe plus minus 10, 20. So I think content is the king definitely, but word limit also has certain role to play because my ESI descriptive went on a very low edge, and there's been a drastic difference between both the scores. One is 25, other is 40. So I think there is a role that word limit also plays. So if people are not accustomed to typing on the keyboard, maybe get a keyboard and type. So of course, the keyboards that you are going to get there are going to be very different and weird, but still you would know how the keyboards operate. So
So
I think that is my
adapting to
take.
that keyboard is also very important part, and also given the
Absolutely.
challenge as that interface is also a challenge in itself to basically type on it, typing all those answers on that. Very good point, ma'am. So now let's move on to the very important part, the all the subjects. Let's first talk about the finance and management, as you have already told about us about the finance and management. So, ma'am, what was the low-hanging fruit for you in the finance and management section?
I think management is probably the most crucial element in the entire paper because one, it is completely static. And second, you need to know the concepts once and you are not going to forget it. You probably will have to revise the names and the theories, but you will not forget the concept. So I think management is one section where one should have control over. Uh, Secondly, it is per se more of a static paper. So if you are conceptually clear, even in the finance section, it is going to go a long way.
So, any
Also, in the
topics?
descriptive,
Yes, ma'am, please.
no, please go ahead.
No, actually, I was asking, as you mentioned the management. So, can you mention some topics, some key topics that you think are really very important to be covered from the exam point of view?
I do not remember, but I think leadership and motivation are two important things because they help you navigate through other sections also. So these probably were the areas that I focused a lot on, but I also ensured that I'm reading a lot of answers. So when I wrote the answers in the examination, I knew what format, what points I'm going to go through. And for revision, since I did not have a lot of notes of my own, for management, I referred to last year RBI Grade B 2021 topper Ghosh ma'am's notes. They are available on Srirang sir's
Hmm.
blog. So I went through those notes and they are pretty comprehensive. So one day before the exam, that is all that I revised. So if you can recall certain points also, eventually in the examination, trust your subconscious mind. It will come back to you if you have prepared well. So for finance management, this is all that I did. I revised the static concepts of both finance and economy through my UPSC notes. So I did not, at least for the static portion, so I did not refer to any other material per se for it.
You also mentioned about the model answers that you read from the editor material for the
Yes.
management as well as the examples. So please tell us something about that and how much they were helpful in your journey for the finance and management section.
I think they were super helpful. So I most of my preparation I focused on those model answers because one they are given in the format itself, and secondly those answers are very comprehensive. So if you are reading probably some theory from there, you do not have to go back to your notes and revise it. So for me, since as you rightly said that there's very
Mm.
little time between the prelims result and phase two. So due to paucity of time, I revised them. I went through certain mind maps for topics which were not covered in the model answers. And I think that was it. And that definitely helped me, as in all the subjects, I would rather say.
So can you tell us about those mind maps that you referred to? Were they structured? Did they really help you in retaining those particular points which are mentioned there?
So with respect to retention, I think
Uh,
model answers helped me more because I am someone who likes reading descriptive more.
mm,
So while factual information I could get from the mind maps, retention, I think the answers helped me more. But they were definitely structured and wholesome in themselves. So if you are referring them, if you have done your
mm.
concepts once, you do not need to refer to any notes. You can just go through the mind maps and maybe it's enough. But adding on, I think descriptive answers have an edge here because you definitely have to write the answers. So if you have a habit of going through the answers, you automatically tend to write answers. So
Yes, ma'am, definitely. So when I talk about the finance part, can you tell our experience about the importance of current affairs in the finance and also the importance of the RBI notifications when I talk about the exam?
I think RBI notifications are extremely important for phase two for interview, and these are extremely crucial because they help you give that sort of completion. So even if you're writing certain answers, if you end up writing something about what RBI has done recently, I'm sure that's going to give you an edge. With respect to MCQs, definitely management is a static portion, but then we have seen questions being asked from the RBI circulars in phase two in the finance section. So you cannot skip them, and you shouldn't skip them because they are low hanging fruits. You really need to remember very few things from those notifications in order to mark those answers correctly. So I think notifications, RBI notifications are very crucial. With respect to current affairs, I truly do not get a lot of time to focus
Mm.
on current affairs. But I did revise certain portions that I had done for the phase one. And I think there were not very, very many questions from that section. But then notifications and general economy is something you should be aware of what is happening around. So I think that is something important.
So very important point, guys. Also note down this point that RBI notifications are not just important for the objective part. You can also complement your answers by mentioning about those findings and what steps RBI is taking in your descriptive part as well. So very important thing. So now, ma'am, any topic that you would like to mention about from the finance part that students must do them as they are really very important from the exam point of view?
I do not remember anything, but one of my friend told me to prepare for global financial crisis, and that ended up being asked in the examination.
Yeah, it did.
So,
It was there.
and I think it has been there in the past also. So I think PYQs are extremely important. Please go through them. If you solve them, you will definitely have an edge in the examination. So that is my take.
Definitely, ma'am. So now let's move on to the next section, that is the economics and social issues. So please tell our students about the importance of the static as well as the current affairs when we talk about the economics and social issues section.
So this portion is mainly current affairs oriented, at least the objective part. Uh, Also, as easy as it seems, I think scoring here is far more difficult vis-a-vis in the FM paper. So, and since the static has very low weightage, it is important that you really, bifurcate your time well, not focusing too much on the static portion after you're done with the concepts and then moving on to the current affairs. Now, since they end up asking a lot of reports and a lot of numerical values, you you just cannot read them once and be ready to go in the examination. You have to revise it multiple times. I am not the most appropriate person to talk about FM because I one did not prepare a lot for it, and even if I prepared, I couldn't
Mm.
get the output in the examination. But I think my take would be make your own notes. Please make your own notes because at the end, in those 20-25 odd days, you will not be able to revise everything, at least with respect to the important reports that RBI tends to ask. This year, there were like 6 questions, I think, from some World Bank report. I couldn't recognize the report altogether, and I had to give a miss to all those 5-6 questions. And I think they were like 2 markers. So if you think about it, it 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 is something that should be given due importance. Go back at least 6 months and then find something that you can write on, write the important findings, what the report is saying, why the report is saying. And RBI also tends to ask options that are very close, like 4.6%, 4.7%, 4.8%. So unless and until you haven't revised it well, you will not be able to mark the right answer. And then these are also the questions you get negative marking for.
So you will just remember that it
So
was around 4 point something and all the options you find they are there in the options.
yes, so your effort goes in vain, right? Because you took so much effort to remember that it is 4 point something, but eventually you couldn't mark the answer. So I think it is important that either you do it like very well, or you try having an upper edge in terms of descriptive answer writing. So I think in the entire batch also the overall marks, the average marks in ESI paper has gone down because the paper was really difficult. So here you probably can, at least try performing average because if you perform average across all the 3 papers, there are very high probability that you'll sail through. So my sources were more like I referred to EduTap ka material for the current affairs,
Mm.
for as in the notifications and the government schemes for May and June. For
So how
other
much
schemes, I
so how much
sorry.
helpful they were in clearing the
I do not
exam?
know. Nothing helped me in
Nothing
ESI
else.
paper.
Okay.
I scored really well.
Yeah.
So just letting you know, I scored 40 in FM descriptive and I scored 40.75 in my entire ESI paper. So you know how bad it was. So when I say this that
Mm.
I do not know what helped me, I really do not know what helped me. Maybe there was certain questions that I marked correctly. But here I also gave a miss to a lot of objective questions because I knew there's negative marking and I knew that I did not know stuff. So you should only be doing guesswork when you think that you are near about the answer. If you do not know something, please do not mark it because there are people who have scored like very less marks in the objective section and still sail through because they performed well in the descriptive portion. So if the paper is difficult, it is difficult for everyone. And this is something that you need to keep in mind even in the examination hall.
Definitely. But one point is very important that guys kindly make your notes because they are really going to help in revising. And you can also end up getting 40 marks in the descriptive like ma'am already got in her score in the finance management part. So ma'am, now moving towards the third section of the exam, that is the English descriptive part. So please tell our aspirants that what exactly should be the order of attempt, and apart from that, how can one allocate and distribute the time to answer those 3 questions which are being asked in the exam?
So I think generally I would prefer starting with essay because that requires some amount of original thinking. You really need to prepare content, get it straight in your head, and then type it out. And this year we had essay. I think the word limit was 600 words, and then we had Pressy, and then we had RC. So, however, since my keyboard wasn't functioning very well,
Hmm.
I ended up writing half of the essay. And since I started running out of time, uh, I had to go to Pressy and then RCs. Now, according to me, RCs are comparatively very easy. One, because even if you write to the point answers to those questions, paraphrasing it works. You really do not need to write 100 odd words for every answer because one, you wouldn't get that time, and secondly, the questions are very specific, so you can afford writing specific answers. Second thing is you find the answers in the passage only, so you don't have to use a lot of your mind. So they are probably the easiest section in the English paper. Pressy, I think a lot of people get confused between Pressy and summary. And a lot of people have ended up asking me this question, and I would like to mention that they are two entirely different things. Pressy is something you are doing in your own words, the crux of the entire those 500, 600 words that have been asked. Vis-a-vis summary where you end up, maybe picking up a few lines and then jotting it down. So I shifted to Pressy and then RC and then came back to essay and completed my essay somehow. So here also, I think word limit does play a crucial role. In Pressy, do not exceed the word limit. They specifically mention that it should not be like more than 10 words here and there. Uh, Other than that, originality is very important. We often do not realize, but we end up copying lines and crucial words from the passage, both in Pressy and the
Reading
RCs.
comprehension.
Yes. And that is something that should not be done because if you are copying right from there, it shows that you haven't understand what the passage is trying to convey. And that is precisely what they are looking for when they are asking you to answer the questions both in RC and the Pressy. So do not copy, think original. I mean, it's
Yes.
doable section if you have a
Yes.
decent command.
Definitely, ma'am. So, any prospective list that you made for the essay in order to prepare for the essay part for the English descriptive part?
I did not. I had my SEBI mains in March the same year. So I had a brief idea about what was going on, what kind of questions IBPS tends to ask in these examinations. So I did not prepare for anything, but I went through so I think EduTap had provided certain fodder
Mhm.
material for the English essay part also. I ended up going through it, I think five or six of them. And that is all that I did basically because I also had UPSC background, so it wasn't something very difficult that I had to go through. I knew how the essays are written, so that definitely helped.
Yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, now before moving towards the next part of the this recruitment cycle, please tell our students about if you have given any kind of mock for the phase 2 part. So, how many mocks you appeared in, and what were your learnings, and how those learnings helped you in the actual exam?
I did not really appear for any mocks because I really think that at that point of time, revision was far more useful and maybe more utility in my case because you can do mocks only when you know what you're supposed to write or answer. So I focused extensively on revisions. I For the descriptive portion, I think since I was reading the model answers, I had a brief idea. When I would see the question, I would think for like 30, 40 seconds if I were to write it, what all I would include. So I think that helped me in getting that mind frame. One. Secondly, I think I did not have a lot of time to solve MCQs also. But I did not prepare for RBI in these 20 days also. I prepared for RBI mains before my 2021 phase one attempt. So I think I had an idea what kind of questions come, what all they ask. But I made sure that I'm going through the PYQs every day. So that definitely played a very important role.
Basically, it helps you in getting the point that what exactly you are required to cover from the exam point of view, what is being asked in the
Absolutely.
exam. That analysis is very important. So guys,
Absolutely.
a few points that you must note down: that analysis is very important, making your notes is very important, and also revision is very important, which is going to help you in clearing the exam. Because in the end, you are really required to attempt that exam with all your knowledge coming, and you are also required to just have a belief on your conscious mind that yes, you will be able to remember all those parts that you have covered in the past 3 to 4 weeks and your whole preparation journey. So I'm now let's talk about the interview part. So what were the areas you prepared for the interview, and how did you prepare for the interview? You prepared for by reading the RBI website, circulars, notifications, and speeches, or the books. So please tell our aspirants about your strategy for the interview part.
So I think interview, as as it is said that it is a test of your personality. I too believe that it is so. However, in order to showcase your personality in a positive manner, you also need to tell them that you have done your homework very well when you are sitting right in front of them. And this happens only when you're prepared well for the interview. You can't be confident if you haven't studied well. So in my case, I focused particularly one on my biodata. Secondly, whatever current events were happening, because there was a lot of news about inflation and we were missing the CPI targets. So that was one very important thing. And then I made sure that I'm covering RBI website as much as I could. Governor speeches, deputy governor speeches. I the function and working document which is present on the RBI website. These are some important things that I did. I did not read the annual report and the trends wala report in wholesome,
Hmm.
but I did make sure that I'm reading the summaries. I also covered budget and economic survey. Now, these are not very important things to do. They did not ask me any question from that, but if they ended up asking me how the economy is doing or what measures are we taking in, making sure that the economy does well, I think it helps if you end up quoting budget or economic survey. And there were people who were asked these questions. So I think these are some very important things that one should cover. Other than that, I had a long gap between the results and my interview, like almost 2 months. So I ended up reading a lot of books, maybe like 5 or 6 of them. So I had a very good idea as to how things are working and probably a more detailed idea also. So if I were to enter into a conversation, it would help me sail through, answer the cross questions also. So this is how I prepared for the interview. Also, I appeared for a lot of mock interviews, and I was extremely lucky to find people who came across and tried helping me in whatever ways they could. My friends, family members, everyone. I at some point was discussing my answers every day with my friend and sister. So I think that definitely helps. Also, one thing I would like to mention is
Yes.
please write down your answers. Like we often ignore this for people at least who are very good with communication or who have a flair for speaking, it is very good thing. It is a asset. But if you do not end up writing your answers in your own words, you will forget what you are actually supposed to speak. Because in the interview hall, you are going to be nervous, come what may. So if you have written something, you have read it 4 times, you automatically are more confident while answering it. And this is something that a lot of people tend to ignore. But I made sure that I'm writing answers to all the HR questions that could possibly be asked for me. So I think that is one thing that I found very important in my preparation.
And so after reading everything, RBI notifications, its developmental role, functions, and the circulars, and lot of books, and you have mentioned that you read 5 to 6 books in that interview preparation, but still, sometimes there might be a question which you don't know the answer about. So is it okay to say no to that answer? So please tell our aspirants about this.
Please do that. Please do that. And it happened with me as well. I had to at some point tell them, I'm sorry, I do not know. And they were extremely kind enough to, make me answer that particular question through some other means. So I believe if you tell them, so just giving an example, in my case, they ended up asking me if you have read payment vision document. Now I had read it like maybe in the initial phase, but I couldn't recall it at that point of time. And I told them that I do not, recall it. All I can recall is that there's a payment vision document 2025. And so the panel member was so cordial. He was like, okay, no problem. So tell us how you would rank countries, if you were to rank them on the basis of their payment systems. Now, they basically tried testing my analytical skills there if I am able to connect the dots, but I wasn't lying. So their expectations were not very high from me. Had I said that I've read it and then not being able to answer question, I think it gives a very, very wrong impression. It is just the same as, you've probably written something in your bio data and then being unable to answer it. So, so just say if you do not know, it's perfectly all right.
Yes, very good point mentioned by ma'am. So ma'am, also a very basic question that all the aspirants have, that how's basically the interview panel? Are they cordial? Are they strict? What kind of person they are?
So they are generally cordial people. They will stress test you. So that is like their job, right? So they will put you in uncomfortable situations, but it is equally important that you sail through those, probably questions. So I do not think that they are not cordial. In my case, I had significant HR questions. That is when I felt a little uncomfortable, but I also knew that they are basically just trying to know me more. If I can withstand certain situations which are not very conducive. So I feel that it's perfectly all right. They are generally very cordial. They will stress test you. Be prepared for it, but then you don't need to lose your sleep over it. I mean, you can definitely do it.
So guys, I really believe that you have got the points about the interview part, that how exactly you can also prepare when you will be appearing for your interviews next year for the RBI Grade B exam. So ma'am, now there is a last part about the this process is that the psychometric test. So please throw some light on the test, that what exactly it is and how can one attempt that.
We do not know what came out in the results of those tests. It was given directly to the interview panel. There were few people who were asked questions
Hmm.
about it. I did not receive any question from that end. Uh, the questions are basically they try to check your consistency. So, they would reframe the same question in different manners in order to see what kind of are you are you lying or are you honest or if you are true. So, probably they will ask you one question, are you good at making friends? And then the next question would be, are you comfortable around different people? So, if in one question you write that, yeah, I am very friendly person, and the next question you answer, no, I can't be around people. It shows two very different personalities, right? Because if you are so friendly and easy to go, you probably are comfortable around people also. So I think this is what they try to know, basically the consistency in your
Hmm.
answers and your personality. Other than that, I do not know if they have any impact on the marks or anything of that sort.
Okay, so I really believe guys that you have got the idea about the test as well. Now ma'am, one more question, that how did EduTap helped you in your journey of becoming the RBI Grade B officer?
I think it was very very important for me because a lot of my phase two preparation depended on EduTap.
Hmm.
Even for phase one, the few videos related to quant and logical that I watched, they were from EduTap channel. So it was very crucial. Also, the interview that I gave, the mock interview, that was the last mock interview I gave, and it was probably the closest to my actual interview also. So it definitely helped me a lot.
So really glad to know that in all those phases, our EduTap has really played a very important role as well. Apart from your efforts as well that you put on to become the RBI Grade B officer. So ma'am, any message that you want to give to our students, any stress buster that you want to mention that they can also use during their tough times in clearing the exam?
I think one tip would be uh, just make sure you have a few people you can go and talk to. We underestimate it often, but it is extremely important if you can go and vent out in front of someone. I was extremely lucky to have several of such people, my family, my friends, family friends, like very, very supportive people. But even if you have like one or two of them, it will help you in ways and means that I cannot explain. It does get a little hard at times. It will take a toll on your mind. But then eventually things do happen. So maybe
Yes.
believe yourself and then move on.
So believe in yourself is a very, very important thing to keep on. So ma'am, I really believe that you have enjoyed the interview session. And guys, I really believe that you also have learned a lot of things from Rashi ma'am here, that how she prepared for her RBI Grade B officer exam and how she cleared it. So I really believe that you have got all the answers to your queries that you were looking out, that how can we prepare for the RBI Grade B exam. Thank you so much, ma'am, for telling all the insights about the answers and preparation strategies to clear the RBI Grade B exam. So,
Thank you very much.
yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, thank you so much for joining our platform and today giving everything which is required for the students to clear this particular exam. And we, on the whole team of EduTap, as well as the student fraternity, would like to wish you all the best for future endeavors.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here.
Yes, ma'am.